Hello, good afternoon, good evening. We are once again here. I know it's been a while. I'm not consistent. Kill today. All right. We are here today to discuss what we think might happen in the next chapter. We are in the throes of coming off of a break week after we saw Monkey D. Luffy. Gear 5, Monkey D. Luffy. Stabbed, impaled through the chest, and called weak by the king of the world, Saint Nerona Emu. Blitzed, by the way. Blitzed after Luffy tried to blitz Emu with a sucker punching bullet. Tried to hit him where he could not see. Sucker punching bullet. Blocked as a Majin that didn't do Majin things, but instead launched a big old fat punch that was blocked easily. What we got going here? What we have going into the next chapter is the fact that we will be dealing with Luffy being out of commission for a short time. Luffy is going to be out of you'll be dealing with Luffy being out of commission for... I have to do this because it's really hot in my... Per this attack from Bofu, the sword of the Howling Void, Luffy will understandably, if Oda takes us that route, Luffy will be out of commission at least for a chapter, if not 2, maybe 3. Considering the amount of damage that he took in this chapter, just in this chapter from these couple of interactions, like it didn't even take an entire chapter for Gear 5 Luffy to go down. Emu pythoned him once. I mean, had his black flames, his sentient black flames, pythoned and followed Luffy's dodge once, blew him up, and then they had a swing and a miss competition. Couple of swings, couple of misses. Emu stabbed once with his glaive. Luffy dodged. Luffy tried to swing at him, literally. Emu dodged. Or no, the sequence, if I remember, the sequence was, I'm sorry, switch those sequences around. Luffy swung at Emu, missed, and then Emu stabbed at Luffy and missed. And then afterwards, caught Luffy, tried to hit him with essentially a Gatling. At least a couple of blows. Looks like it was two pistols, two gum pistols. And blocked him by spinning his staff, spinning his blade and whatnot. It was a really nice, really cool action-packed chapter. But it was only one chapter, and Luffy is already in really bad shape. Omened, stabbed through the heart with a life-draining blade. And we have the other Straw Hats, the other Wings, Zoro and Sanji, now caught up in their fights and having to better themselves so that they are able to use Conqueror's Haki to beat these God's Knights, Summers and Killian, respectively. But for now, we are dealing with Emu calling Luffy a punk ass, and basically just calling him a punk ass, calling him weak, calling him not Joy Boy, even though Luffy, for whatever reason, keeps reminding Emu of Joy Boy, likely because same fruit, same abilities and whatnot, same happy-go-lucky nature. And I think that that's we're in for a very intriguing next couple of chapters, because we're gonna have to see, first of all, whether or not this loss sticks. The prevailing thought is that this loss, this impaling, is on the same or the similar level to Luffy's first loss against Crocodile. Impaled through the chest and then thrown down, probably going to be drained of life, similar to how he was drained of all water and moisture after the first loss to Crocodile. And he'll need to be saved. He'll need to be taken care of by, in this case, his crew, who are all watching, by the way. They're all seeing this happen. Seeing this loss of their great captain to Emu, to this beast of a figure. Jinbei, Nami, Chopper, Usopp, Brook, Frankie. They're all there. They are all there. Robin isn't there because Robin is currently with Saul trying to talking to Biblio. Something that has yet to be gotten away from? No. Something that is yet to be explored again, since we found out that Biblio hid all the books from O'Hara in a tunnel inside the tree. Somehow. That is yet to be explained, but we'll get there at some point. We'll come back. There's a lot more pressing matters, like Luffy using Gum Gum Jet Gatling in Gear 5. I don't think I would have ever hear him say Jet Gatling in Gear 5 instead of Dawn Gatling or Black Mamba. Like, one of the cool things, and this is a tangent, but one of the cool things that I like about this chapter, you know, besides Luffy being in Gear 5, going Majin mode, sucker punching Bullet and stuff like that, even though Luffy using Jet Gatling in Gear 5 was more or less ineffective, I'm just looking at the panel where he uses Jet Gatling and he's punching all of the Omen balls. One of the Omen balls has eyes bulging out. And I always laugh at stuff like that because, like, because it's one of many different reactions, and as part of the group of reactions, they always make me laugh. But Luffy using Jet Gatling pretty much solidifies. I think it was always the case. So thinking it wasn't going to be like what it's kind of foolhardy. But I just find it as interesting trivia that Luffy in Gear 5 has access to every single one of his named attacks and their variants. So you have Gatling, you know, in Gear 1, Gatling, Jet Gatling, Giant Gatling, Elephant Gatling, Rock Gatling, King Organ Gun, and Black Mamba, and Dawn Gatling. Like, they're all variants of Gatling, but with various contexts to them that make them all, even though they're all the same, they're all variants of Gatling. They're all the same. They all have different effects to them, or different ways of being portrayed. Hence, why they have an adjective before. Why they have an adjective and then Gatling. Gum Gum Gatling is just that. It's your basic Gatling. Jet Gatling. It's Gear 2, pumped full of speed, hits harder. Giant Gatling, slower but hits way harder and is much larger. Elephant Gatling. These giant fists are now coated in. These giant fists are now coated in hockey, armament hockey. Still Jet Gatling, but now we upgrade Jet Gatling to Hawk Gatling. Similar to Red Hawk, but Hawk Gatling, which is now this is Gatling that isn't giant, but also coated, but still coated in armament hockey fists. Kong Organ Gun, which is Gear 4's version of Gatling. Kong Organ Gun, which is Gear 4 Bounce Man's version of Gatling. And Black Mamba, which is Snake Man's Gatling. And then, of course, Gear 5's version, we have Dawn Gatling. It's cool that basically he has his various moves and has basically, it's to be expected, but he has access to all the variants of his moves, and he's not. Oda isn't just limiting Luffy to using only the current Gears version of the moves. Just like how, as Luffy has gotten better with both his hockey usage and his gear usage, you know, going from taking lifespan off of himself by using Gear 2 a whole bunch of times, or turning small after using Gear 3, or not losing the ability to use hockey after the usage of Gear 4. He doesn't suffer the drawbacks of his previous gears as much, but still has access to, in base form. Right now he's in Gear 5, but in base form he has now ready access to those moves in base form. How he can, you know, he has access to Jet Gatling without needing to go into Gear 2. He has access to Giant Gatling without needing to go into Gear 3. And, you know, just this in this arc, Elbaf, he now has access to Kong Gun, and with that, the rest of his Gear 4 moves as well, while he doesn't go into Bound Man form. Like he you know, Muscle Balloon, but it's only his arm. Partial Gear 4, as he called it, Kong Gun. So seeing Jet Gatling is a really cool note, in that even in Gear 5, even in his other gears, he has access and will use the other moves. One could say that using Jet Gatling is kind of underestimating or using less, not using the full potential of the full strength of his current form. But I think it's neat because that's what he really needs for a situation like this, where he has to where he basically is only dealing with small enemies, insignificant enemies. These Omen Balls, as powerful as they are, see, let's see, just as a... yeah. As an example, you see how he punches the Omen Balls, and he's using Jet Gatling. That's all he really needs for insignificant enemies such as these sentient Omen Balls. Omen Balls. Because what else would you really need for something like that? You don't really need anything else. Now, granted, Emu doesn't look nearly as impressed, and so far his entire dealing with Luffy up to this point has been unimpressed. He had more fun fighting Loki for 3 chapters and being reminded and reminiscing in nostalgia of having to fight Nidhogg, of having to fight Ragnar, and smiling while he was taking attacks from a full-blown dragon capable of wiping islands off the map, lesser islands off the map, in Loki. He was having more fun fighting Loki and Ragnar than he has ever been once fighting Luffy. He's just been saying that Luffy looks like Joy Boy, reminds him of Joy Boy, reminds him of, you know, he's doing things that just reminisce him of Joy Boy, having him have all of these like mini flashbacks to when Joy Boy was talking to him, when he called him up for whatever reason, as a child, I guess, because childish language is what was happening in the beginning of the chapter of 1188. Is it 1188? Yeah, 1188, Wailing Void. Dude's just not been impressed. And he very much has been eyeing Luffy and thinking, why does this guy remind me so much of Joy Boy? And of course, Luffy's big ass, Luffy's dumb ass, you know, keeps replying to him saying, well, I don't know why, I'm Luffy. As he does. Like, it is expected for Luffy to be like, I don't know who the heck you're talking about. My name is Luffy. I'm going to be king of the pirates. That's our MC, by the way. That is our MC. And we're just looking at, but because of that, Emo has just been like, who is this guy? You know what? You're right. Who are you, really? Because you definitely, sure as shit, are not Joy Boy. And because of that, Emo was like, and because you're not Joy Boy, I really don't have to take you seriously. But because you remind me so much of Joy Boy, you gotta get yourself out, man. You gotta get out. Not yourself, but you gotta get out. Which is why he pulls out Bofu from his Omen ring, while puts away his staff. Also, another stigma attack where he was about to he basically marked Luffy for death when he put the stigma fire onto Luffy's beard in his Majin form, while also calling out, hey, you remember what happened to Loki? You even said, Luffy started off with, hey, I remember what you did to Loki. That ain't happening to me. And then Emu replies saying, okay, you do know what happened to Loki's big ass, right? And he does another stigma attack. Luckily, you know, Luffy was smart enough to get out of the form before he was freaking impaled by a heavy attack. It wasn't even an ultimate, by the way. That wasn't an ultimate. That was a heavy attack. Or one could call it a super. Let me just say the word and I'll protect him for you. I really wonder what the Straw Hats are going to be doing now that Luffy is going to be down. At least, I'm hoping that Luffy will stay down. He kind of has to after a hit like that. I mean, we saw the whole thing where Imu's sword, after he drew Bofu, the Wailing Sword, or Sword of the Wailing Void, the surrounding trees lost all life. They were sucked dry of life. Even going so far as to make a joke saying, damn, the blue is improving. Like, for all of Imu's seriousness, this man knows how to crack a joke. He does. He knows how to crack a deadpan joke. And that's where I think a lot of the humor comes from, is the fact that Imu is deadpan. He doesn't have crazy, like, reactions, crazy emotions or whatever. It's the only time he had any sort of, like, crazy reactions when he was punched in the face, Charlo style, by Luffy's entrance. But before and after that, Imu's been mostly smiling. He's taken hits, he's taken blows. But he hasn't exactly, like, emoted to the degree where his face is contorted. He's been no nonsense this whole time, but all of his words, besides him just kind of going off about Joy Boy in the past and how Luffy, Loki, and Ragnar all remind him of, like, shit that happened 800 years ago back in the Void Century, or start of the Void Century. Like, he's been no nonsense, and he's been doing his own version of banter. It's deadpan, and it's more no nonsense banter than any of the silly, goofy banter that Luffy does, or the tsundere, masculine, I hate you die kind of banter that Loki does. But I hate you die, but endearing banter, masculine banter that Loki does. But it's still banter, because, you know, here in this one, he says, huh? The forest is wilting. Imu just looks up and says, oh, the view is improving. Looks fine from here. The view is improving. What manner of reason does Imu have of saying something like this? For a no-nonsense guy, this guy has some jokes. After clearing the forest of all life, he's just like, yeah, the view is improving. Yes. And then also, Luffy isn't laughing anymore. Luffy started the fight, and we had this whole big title card to Saint Nerona Imu versus Monkey D. Luffy. That was chapter 1187, where we basically started the final fights. I say final now in quotations because, well, damn, man. Oh, that's not working. Okay, fine, whatever. Damn, look at what happened to our boy Luffy here. Given an epic title card with its own font and everything, only for the fight to last, at most, only for the fight to last one chapter. Again, we'll have to see what comes of this loss. I'm hoping it sticks, because what that would do for the story, what that would do for the Straw Hats that are all currently watching this happen in real time, by the way. Like, let's not forget that the rest of the crew, sans Zoro and Sanji, are seeing this happen to their captain. We have yet to see what their reactions are and what they're going to do now that their two most powerful dudes, Loki and Luffy, are down. Supposedly, seemingly. Loki is definitely down because we now have a chapter that confirms that Loki is, so far, right now, out of the fight. The only reason we don't know is because we've had moments like this happen before. A moment in particular where Luffy has essentially shrugged off direct hits such as this. Most notably in Wano during his fight with Kaido. In fact, most of Gear 5's showcases and showings post the Awakening, post 1044, have been Luffy in Gear 5 just taking hit after hit after hit after hit. Some of them direct, lethal blows. And Gear 5 Luffy kind of just shrugging them off, more or less. Either he forms around whatever hit him, or he just bounces back. Quite literally bounces back. He turned old after exhausting Gear 5 in the fight against Kaido. Turns old. It stops. Like, he can't go into Gear 5, and then he restarts Gear 5 again. Just out of sheer determination. Now, something like that, I'll say that in that one case, because it hasn't happened since, in that one case, Luffy couldn't afford to just go back, retreat, and eat some food to regain his stamina again. He just had to go back into Gear 5. So he just willed himself to go back into Gear 5. And right now, as of this chapter, as of the most recent chapter, that's the only time that Luffy has ever just willed himself back into Gear 5 after... Hello, Nix. Good to see you. Good to see you. Hello, hello. It was the only time that Gear 5 has ever been just willed back into activation. Was when Kaido and Luffy had that moment where they were both basically tired as hell and just having a small talk with each other before starting up what was essentially round 2 or round 3 of Kaido versus Gear 5 Luffy. That's been the only time, so I could only assume that for Luffy to lose the Gear 5 form, go old man mode, and then restart it, bro, try new games. I'll be interested in trying some new games later, but right now that's not what's happening. But thank you though. Since it's the only time that Gear 5 Luffy has ever been restarted, and he didn't have a sort of downtime period afterward to either eat, well, really to just eat, or to rest, it's a one-of-a-kind thing where doing so actually does a real detriment on Luffy's body. For him to just go Gear 5, get lose Gear 5 and then restart it again. It's the only time that Gear 5 would ever have any real downsides. Because so far, the only downside is that Luffy just turns old, which is nothing unlike turning small, going chibi form after doing Gear 3 in pre-time skip. Or losing the ability to use hockey for 10 minutes after using Gear 4, full Gear 4, and whatnot. I say all of that and go on that really large tangent in order to say that we don't know what Oda's going to do going into 1189, because Luffy has bounced back from other blows before. He's bounced back from other blows, sort of taking away any and all consequences from getting hit by really damaging hits. There's not been an enemy up to this point, besides Emu. One could say Kaido, but Kaido was more so just beat the man to death, which has been his entire MO for the entirety of his pirate career. Just beat people into submission. He did that very well, and if not for the fact that he had to run a gauntlet of pretty much the entirety of the strongest fighters in the Alliance at Onigashima, he likely would have done the same thing to Luffy and outlasted him, because he's been doing this longer. He's had more control over his hockey longer. He's had access to really powerful attacks longer than Luffy had at the time, because Luffy had just awakened Gear 5. And could really have schooled Luffy on the usage of both Conqueror's Haki and being one with one's Devil Fruit. So besides Kaido, only Emu has really given Luffy the time of... It has really given Luffy a run for his money. Especially now where what's essentially happened is that Luffy's cartoonish body and cartoonish bouncing back nature has been nullified, has not been a factor, especially the likes of which not even Kaido could really negate. In this one, Luffy's all bloodied up in Gear 5, but Gear 5, ever since his awakening, Gear 5 has not been bloodied up at all, basically. Since awakening, you might see some bruises, you might see some scratches, but Oda has not drawn Gear 5 Luffy to be bloodied. Not like this. I mean, look at this. He's coughing up blood and is bleeding out, and yeah, he's got some, it's mixed in with some Omen fire and whatnot, but Luffy's coughing up blood and is bleeding out right now as Gear 5. Before this point, this has never happened. So, from the reader's perspective, we can only assume that, this hit from this sword is going to take him out at least for a little bit. Everyone expects Luffy to get back up. But for the story's sake, I'm hoping that he stays down, because that then allows the rest of the Straw Hats to step up and protect their captain. It puts more pressure on Zoro and Sanji to have their hockey blows and win their fights, so that they are also helping and aiding their captain. But they also can't leave their fights versus Killingham and Somers. They're completely occupied, because if they don't, Killingham and Somers are just going to run rampant versus the rest of the island of Elbaf, versus all the Elbaf giants. There's no one on the island, especially in their super-powered Omen forms, that would be able to take on the God's Knights if Zoro and Sanji weren't there stopping them and taking them on as we speak. Which leaves the rest of the Straw Hats, sans Robin and Bonnie for agenda purposes, to deal with Emu in front of them. Right now they're trying to melt Princess Shuri out of the block of ice, and maybe Shuri Gunko will be able to give them some pointers of how to at least contest Emu, because not expecting them to do any sort of real damage to Emu, Saint Nerona Emu of all people, even all together. But they'll give him. But I'm guessing and hoping that Shuri will give the rest of the Straw Hats something, especially with something other than simply blocking Omen balls, like Jinbei was able to do with his Arabic tile brick fist, of dispersing the Omen flames, to where they'll be able to at least stall Emu enough for Luffy to recover. And since Loki is also out of action right now, Ragnar has no wielder. Now people say that, this is a perfect time for Usopp to wield Ragnar, even if temporarily. And I would agree. I would just be excited to see Usopp do anything right now, because so far Usopp's current contributions to the Elbaf arc was he blew up a mirror wall that didn't shatter, even though the explosion itself was really, really large. He blew up an immortal God's Knight in Gunko. He told off the king of the world, said, "Hey man, why don't you get your hands dirty and stop using minions and actually get your hands dirty? Why don't you come on down here, huh? Come on down here. Pick on someone your own size. Stop hiding up in the clouds and shit. Stop hiding among your minions." And Emu was like, "Oh, word? Alright, let's do that." Even though I would much prefer, even though I don't give a shit, and it actually makes things a lot easier, and he's right about this. Emu is right about this. It's a lot easier to handle things through minions. That way I can focus my efforts and energy on other things, such as the fire and redraw right now. Actually, I think that's been fixed now. Emu, even though he told off Usopp and saying, what good is a leader dirtying his hands when the minions are just as capable? Like, the memes at the time were that, Usopp rage baited Emu into coming to Elbaf. I still think that was a hilarious meme that came out of that chapter, where Usopp was like, "Come on, pick on someone your own size. Stop hiding behind your minions. Come on down yourself." And Emu did. It was like, "Oh, word? Sure, let me show up." Especially now that we gotta get a move on. We gotta get a move on. we still have a time limit that has been set up by the fact that Emu's arrival came with the caveat that he can't be here for very long. We're still dealing with that. That has not yet come into narrative play, but that's still hanging over our heads as the audience. And right now, Emu has full reign over the rest of Elbath at this point. Now that Loki is down, who gave him the most trouble, Loki Nidhogg is down, Loki Nidhogg Ragnar are down, who gave him the most trouble, and Luffy is seemingly down. Now that he's, impaled him through the chest with his life-draining sword. Maybe Brook can get another block in, like he did versus Imunko at the start, that had Usopp jump in to help him out. Also, I want to note here that Usopp and Brook, it must have been quite a while at this point that since Emu and Brook were downed by Imunko. Because they're up and moving now, and especially Brook, who is very active at the moment. Very active. And Usopp, who is talking like a normal human being at the moment. I mean, they all are. They're all talking like normal humans, even though Brook is a skeleton and Frank is a cyborg and Jinbei's a fishman. And Chopper's a reindeer. Straw Hats have quite the eccentric crew and cast. But I'm interested to see what the rest of the Straw Hats do now that their captain is down. Seemingly. Hopefully. Because we could be looking at another Oars situation from Thriller Bark, where each of the current Straw Hats do something to protect their captain, especially. A mixture of Oars and Oars and the Pacifista moment on Sabaody, where everybody gets to contribute like one attack or one moment. Thanks, my buddy. Thanks. He's my buddy. I'll leave him to you, Jinbei. Who are you calling buddy for run? World government is always shrouded in mystery. I'm not surprised that Brook and the rest of the Straw Hats wouldn't know that Emu is the king of the world. Because how could they? How could anyone on the island, besides Loki and Ja Rule, have ever known that there would be someone else at the top of the world government? Heck, even Loki and Ja Rule don't really know any better, especially by Loki's reaction when Emu first arrived on the island. They don't know any better. They just fought an upgraded version of Herald at the time. They fought a demonized version of King Herald, and they had no idea why that was happening at the time. Only that there was need for Loki, Jarul, and the rest of the giants that were in the palace on that day 14 years ago to take out Harold, to kill King Harold, and make sure that Harold wasn't able to do any more damage. But it's neat to see how close various Straw Hats guesses are. Like Brooke figuring out that, you know, Emu is a higher up ranked, must be the leader of the Emu. Brooke figuring out that Emu at least must be higher ranked than the God's Knights, but Emu is someone that has very high rank above the God's Knights. It's just he can't put two and two together that Emu is above even the 5 elders. I don't really expect him to, because that's out of the realm of possibility for everyone who's not in the know to know going forward. Unless your name is Rox Dizabek, Gar, Whitebeard, who's not alive anymore, Kaido, who seemingly is not alive anymore, and to a lesser extent Loki, although he doesn't really know either. You're just not, unless you're one of those people who were there on God Valley. You're just not gonna know who Emu is, even when they say the name. Ivankov came close. Ivankov had the theory that there was someone above the 5 elders, and even called Saint Nerona Emu's name per Sabo's report. Oh, unless you're someone who is in the know already, which should only be the God's Knights and the 5 elders, someone from God Valley, which at this point is only Gar. Yeah, who at this point is only Gar. And maybe Blackbeard. Maybe Blackbeard's crew. Maybe Blackbeard. That has yet to be confirmed. Or your Sabo, or someone who was in the throne room at Cobra's execution by the 5 elders, which is Sabo and Wapol, surprisingly. You're just not gonna know that there's even somebody at the top to begin with. But it is nice and it is cool to see characters get close to putting 2 and 2 together. In this case, you have Brooke, who had seen Emu before, but he wouldn't be privy to the fact that it was Emu at the time. Emu certainly recognizes it. You know, with his passing comment before the sucker punching boat, with his passing comment, Princess Shuri. No, this is Brooke. Gunko, thou hast yet to break the ice. A man with an afro, who refers to Gunko as Princess Shuri. It cannot be. Like, Emu recognizes Brooke from that day. Why wouldn't he? Because, you know, Brooke, Gunko, Princess Shuri, Emu possessing Gunko, possessing Princess Shuri that day, having a direct hand in getting Princess Shuri, would know the events of that day. So, I am excited and looking forward to the interaction, what's going to be the interaction between, the personal interaction between Emu and Brooke, and by extension, the rest of the Straw Hats, while Luffy is recovering. Again, I don't think any of them will ever do any real damage, let alone like damage at all, to or be as effective to Emu while Loki and Luffy are down. But one hopes, and I hope, that they'll be able to do something. They'll have something that would be individually effective versus something of Emu. We already see that with Jinbei, who disperses the black flames, the homing black flames. That's one. We have Ragnar that's still up and running. He just has no wielder. That's two. That's probably going to go to Usopp or something like that. And then once Shuri gets out, maybe there's something else for the rest of the Straw Hats to be able to do to be able to stall Emu while their captain recovers. That being said, though, before they get into the stance of protecting their captain and Loki, I do need to see what the reaction is going to be to Luffy losing in this fashion. If you have been following various One Piece creators, one of the things that they mentioned, and I went back and I saw this myself and read this myself, but the times that Luffy has lost, the times that Luffy has gone down, were moments where there was no one else there to see Luffy lose. There was no one else around Luffy, no one close to Luffy. No one from his crew, by the way, from his crew, that were really there to see Luffy lose. Or if there was, it was maybe like one or two. Not this many Straw Hat members all in one place. Not like the entire crew. Versus Crocodile, it was just Robin both times. No, it was just Robin for the second time. And it was no one for the first time. In Water 7 versus Lucci, I think Zoro was already out of commission and no one else saw Lucci impale and take out Luffy at the time. So there was nobody there for the loss verse against Lucci. There was no one there when all the Straw Hats were sent away during Sabaody. Luffy was the last Straw Hat to be sent away. So they didn't see Luffy lose. None of the Straw Hats saw Luffy lose. They all got sent away before they saw Luffy get sent away. Or Luffy lose in that sense, in that one. Marineford, none of his crew was there. Katakuri, he was stuck in the mirror world, and it was just him and Katakuri, plus some others, but him and Katakuri basically. And on Kaido was the rooftop. The only ones to even get an inkling that Luffy may have lost was Momonosuke, and all Momonosuke and Law, basically, who were feeling out Luffy's energy via observation hockey. Well, Law was feeling out via observation hockey. Law and Marco. But at that point, during the raid on Onigashima, nobody believed it. And rightly so. They didn't take Law serious. They didn't really take Law's words seriously. Luffy may have had his life snuffed out, but they didn't really. It didn't that moment of Luffy losing and dying, by the way, dying on the rooftop by Kaido. It was a moment that didn't last long enough to be impactful. 1043 was the only time that it felt like there was going to be any sort of real stakes and real consequences to Luffy losing happening during that entire raid, during that entire arc, basically. And to that end, all it was because none of the Straw Hats saw it, and even at the time, Kaido came down and reported that their captain was dead, that their hero and champion was gone. Kaido didn't bring Luffy's body down with him and plop it in front of the Alliance, saying, "This is your hero. I have killed him. Surrender." That move right there was actually a monumental misstep on Kaido's part and on Oda's part. I think now, one could say that at the time, Kaido was too ashamed of that win to show the body. But I really think at the time, to really let it hit home and really demoralize the Alliance, he should have brought the body down. Now, it would have been strange. It would not have worked for what happened right afterward, which was the awakening of Gear 5. It would not have allowed... Egghead would have gone way differently in terms of whether the rest of the Straw Hats would be truly surprised during Egghead to see Luffy's Gear 5 form. They wouldn't be surprised, is what that would be, if Luffy awakened Gear 5 in front of the entire Alliance. But it would have hit harder at the time to see Luffy's lifeless body plopped right in front of the Alliance. But that didn't happen, so we got other stuff to do. So we got what actually happened. One chapter of Kaido terrorizing the Alliance, or beginning to terrorize the Alliance before awakening Gear 5, and then the rest of the raid is history. For this one, here in Elbaf, we finally will get to see the reactions to the rest of the Straw Hats for seeing their captain take a fatal blow. I don't think we've actually seen... No, we haven't. We haven't. This will be the first time that the rest of the crew will have seen their captain take a lethal blow and be hopefully for sure, an oxymoron, a paradox. Hopefully for sure, taken out of commission. And they will be forced to do something or cower in fear. But either way, they will now have to directly step to the leader of the opposing force and either stand 10 toes down or back off out of fear for their lives, knowing now that their champion is down. Both of their champions, because Loki's down too. I'm looking forward to seeing how that goes. I'm looking forward to seeing the reactions, because that'll be very much a juicy narrative and juicy tension. Because what are they going to do now? They do not have the abilities to take on Emu themselves. They don't. But what will they do in spite of that? That is where the real character development and character writing and maneuvering of stakes and exercising how good of a storyteller Oda is comes into play. When the chips are down and the chips have failed for the heroes, for the protagonists. Where we go from here is it's exciting territory. Just from the fact that we get to basically see what happens when the hero loses for the first time in a while. Luffy's been getting W after W after W, and for his L's, this is like when he couldn't hurt Warcury. Couldn't really stop the Gorosei, but in a sense he did stop the Gorosei. He just wasn't really punished for not stopping the Gorosei, but he's had a long string of wins, basically a long string of not else, and for the first time in a very long time, Luffy has now truly taken an L. And I'm excited to see where, and it's been long overdue. I've been waiting for the protagonists to take a legitimate loss, a direct legitimate loss. We're not going to count Egghead because Egghead was a success on both ends. Egghead was a success for the protagonists because they got away, they took money, they got Vegapunk's real body out the way, the Stella body out. Vegapunk survived for their side. We're not counting York is for the world government side, but Lilith, Lilith living is Vegapunk getting out. So their objectives, the Straw Hats' objectives, were a success. But Egghead was also a success for the world government because they also have a Vegapunk in the form of York. They have the Mother Flame, as well as the Labo phase, as well as the laboratory to be able to work out of for more Mother Flames. Even though Egghead Island is no longer usable, they have their own Vegapunk and they have control over the Seraphim. So the world government's objectives, as messy as it was, still were achieved. It was wins on both sides. Nobody really took an L. They kind of just left with their stuff and called it a day. Joy Boy's hockey knot was untied, set off a hockey bomb, the likes of which the world has never seen before or since, and kind of just reset everyone to 0, or reset everyone to 1. It was a tie game. Draw. World government got theirs. The Straw Hats and the protagonists got theirs. So that wasn't really an L for Luffy. And during those fights, Luffy fought till exhaustion rather than actually taking any L's. He beat up Kizaru. He then beat up Kizaru and he beat up Lucci first. Then beat up some Seraphim that didn't get damaged. So were they really beating him up? Not, He then beat up Kizaru. Or rather, they took each other out, but he beat up Kizaru, and then he beat up both Kizaru and Saturn, and then he went up against the Elders, or tried to at least, with help from Dory and Brogy, fought them, basically knocked them back. That's all Luffy could really do. He couldn't hurt them. He couldn't beat them, he couldn't hurt them, he couldn't even really drive them back. But he also didn't take any direct losses from them either. he played baseball with some poison bombs, hurt himself trying to hit a boar, got eaten by a worm, and then was saved. And catapulted a bird out of the arena. That was his one true W. Catapulted a bird out of the arena and put holes in a Gorosei that didn't really have durability to begin with, except for regeneration. Yeah, you could call those L's, you could call those losses and whatnot, but they're I think in the overall grand scheme, they were too minor to really affect the overall arc itself. Besides that, you had an immovable object and an unstoppable force clashing and not doing anything. But in this case, Gear 5 and Luffy being impaled by this Bofu sword. It's the first time we've gotten a serious L for Luffy in a very long time. And it could not have come at a better time. We're about to unfreeze Princess Shuri. And with both Luffy and Loki down, Imu can now focus his entire curiosity, is what I'm going to call it. His curiosity on the fact that Brook has taken a much determined look at Gunko. After dispatching Luffy, Imu is going to investigate the fact that the Afro Man, the Afro Skeleton, has such a devoted interest in Gunko. There's going to be curiosity there, and there's going to be a confrontation with the rest of the Straw Hats due to the fact that Brook has vested interest in Gunko Princess Shuri. Imu's going to check it out. Of course, they're going to try to stop him, and Imu's just going to hand-wave them away. But what are they going to do right before Imu hand-waves them away? What's going to be the dialogue? What's going to be the interaction? Because ever since Imu has landed on Elbaf, he has not stopped talking. This is the most the most words Imu has ever uttered since his introduction in 957. More so than his entire speech about the history of the world to Cobra during the Reverie. More than even his time as Imunko before setting foot onto the Elbaf himself. More so than his time at God Valley and his conversation with Saturn. Imu has not shut up, basically, since he got onto Elbaf himself. It's actually remarkable that this dude, that as a shadowy blob figure, had very few words besides an exposition on the history of the world, government, and why Nefertari D. Lily was such a thorn in his side, that he now is like, damn, look at all this nostalgia, man. I can't help but reminisce in Joy Boy and Nidhogg and Ragnir. Damn, man, it feels good. I can't believe these guys are here again. I'm excited. Except for Joy Boy, of course. You remind me too much of Joy Boy, and you're not really doing anything that I would expect Joy Boy to do. You know what? You're right. Get on out. You're not Joy Boy. He wasn't this week. This dude does not stop talking. Even cracks jokes. Cracks nonchalant, no nonsense jokes and quips here and there. I like this. It's a different form of humor. It's different humor because it's the kind of humor that isn't silly. People say it's deep. People say, like, they would call it deadpan. No nonsense. Being a straight man to Luffy's goofy. And Ragnar's squeak. It's to anybody that is in here, feel free to ask any questions, see where we could go. Otherwise, I've talked for long ass time. I think if I were to make any sort of like prediction for what is going to happen in the next chapter, saying it here now, for one, okay, I'm trying to separate between wishes and actual predictions. If I were to make like a hard stance of what to predict, of what's going to happen in the next chapter, I will say that, for one, Luffy's down. Drained of life, out of commission. I don't see Oda spending the panel space, showing that a random sword coming out of Imu's Demon Eye Circle, Omen Circle, be switched out from his staff, have panels of literally wilting trees and plant life in the surrounding area, stab the hero of the story straight through the chest, gushing blood and everything. He wouldn't be doing all of this effort just for Luffy to bounce back Gear 5 style in the next chapter. He would allow that to marinate. So, Luffy's gonna be out. And because Luffy is out, you have the rest of the Straw Hats who are watching this all unfold right before their very eyes, have to now deal with the fact that they have a curious Emu. I say curious, not angry, because to be fair, I think Emu was looking at Loki and Luffy as obstacles in his way rather than genuine annoyances. Hell, in Loki's case, Emu was pumped to be fighting Nidhogg again. He was enthusiastic, had a smile and everything after taking a Thorheim, an island destroying attack from across the island. Emu's gonna be curious and try to talk to Brook. He won't actually like help the Straw Hats break Shuri Gunko out of the ice. He'll go over to the rest of the Straw Hats, who have now witnessed and are in shock that Luffy is down for the count after taking such a nasty hit from a blade that is burning black fire. They will try to rush over to help Luffy. Chopper in particular will be able to get to Luffy. Chopper and maybe Jinbei. Or Chopper, not Jinbei, but Chopper and Frankie, I think, will be able to go to Luffy and try to recover him. Emu will let them, because they're too weak to really do anything. The ones that stay back will be Brook, Jinbei, and Nami, and Usopp. Those four. Brook, Jinbei, Nami, and Usopp will stay behind because they gotta protect Shuri, Ragnar, and Loki. Chopper and Frankie will go over to Luffy to recover him. After everybody experiences their shock of Luffy being down, by the way. This will happen first, is that the rest of the crew that are there are all going to be extremely shocked and distraught by the fact that Luffy took such a fatal blow. They won't know what to do. They'll be panicking. They'll be like, oh shit! Oh no, Luffy! Luffy! Luffy, get up! Get up, Luffy! Shit, he's not getting up. We gotta do something. Oh no! You know, we might have one or two panels, cutaways to Sanji and Zoro, who through their senses, probably with observation haki or just they know their captain very well, they'll sense that Luffy is down for the count, and they will then feel the pressure. Because they'll just be like, oh shit. Everybody's just, this is the perfect time for the entire island to just have a collective oh shit moment. Oh shit, we're fucked. Because Luffy is down for the count. So that's the first prediction. The first prediction is that Luffy is down. He's not coming back up for most of the chapter, if not the entire chapter. Everyone on the island, but especially the Straw Hats, will have a collective oh shit moment before getting into various places. Before getting the action. Zoro and Sanji will ramp up their efforts, possibly having either a hockey bloom or getting close to one, while they need to fend off attacks from an emboldened Somers and Killingham, after realizing that their leader has taken down the captain. There will be a small cutaway with them. There will be a small cutaway for Zoro and Sanji's reactions, but the main part of the chapter is going to be the rest of the Straw Hats sans Robin, their reactions, their initial reaction and panic and shock at Luffy going down. Chopper and Frankie would be two of the guys, would be two of the Straw Hats that will be tasked voluntarily or involuntarily. They'll jump into action. Those two will task themselves in going to recover Luffy. Emu will allow this only because he has bigger curiosities in his mind at the moment. He might try to take out Luffy if Luffy is found to be alive still. He might try to finish off Luffy, but then you have Chopper and Frankie intervening to get Luffy, to recover Luffy. They'll try once. Emu will attempt to intercept Chopper and Frankie. I think I'm expanding my prediction now, but Emu will attempt to intercept Chopper and Frankie after everybody has their collective oh shit moment. Emu will try to intercept Chopper and Frankie, but will get stopped by the collective efforts of Zeus, Jinbei, and Zeus and Jinbei, basically intercepting Emu's interception. Brook is still focused on getting Shuri out, but now he is conflicted because he's conflicted and his focus is divided between dealing with his captain, who's now down and requires his help, and Princess Shuri, who remains in the block of ice. He's going to be conflicted, but due to his loyalty to Luffy, will also probably jump in in trying to intercept Emu. And with that, Emu will then turn his gaze and his subsequent curiosity towards Brook. And then Brook and Emu will have a direct interaction with each other in regards to Princess Shuri. There will be a scuffle, there will be a clash, there will even be angry and distraught words coming from Usopp and Nami especially. Nami especially because woman, and she's gonna be crying and saying, no, oh gosh, you know, she's gonna be freaking out. Usopp will also be freaking out. Jinbei will bounce into action. But he won't be able to move much because he can't leave Loki alone, or else Emu's just going to snipe him. Emu's just going to snipe Loki. So Jinbei can't move from his spot of protecting Loki, but he will be there to at least intercept whatever Emu tries to do when Emu comes over to talk to the rest of the gang. He will have his curiosity mainly with Brook. He'll leave Chopper and Frankie alone to deal with not Joy Boy, Luffy. Because at this point, Emu's curiosity, Emu has bigger fish to fry, and now trying to talk to and reconcile in his head who Brook is. He also might have some choice words for Usopp, who's like, I came down, man. This would be a funny moment, and a funny moment for Emu to do, for Emu to come to the rest of the Straw Hats. Let Chopper and Frankie go to Luffy and whatnot. Brush aside Jinbei, brush aside Nami, and focus on Brook and Usopp specifically. He'll talk to Brook seriously because Brook has the direct connection to Princess Shuri / Gunko. He'll have a very genuine interaction of, who is this girl to you? Who is Gunko to you, Afro Man? That'll be the bulk of the interaction. That may actually also end the chapter, by the way. I'm going to say that as a prediction. That that Brook and Emu have a genuine interaction with each other that leads to the next chapter, where they go full on, where they have a genuine back and forth for whatever reason, either within a fight or simply Emu holding the rest of the Straw Hats hostage while he talks to Brook. But before that happens, it would be really, really funny. I'm going to add this as a genuine prediction, but it would be really funny for for Emu to come over to the rest of the Straw Hats as they're distraught and have like one or two lines addressing Usopp directly and being like, you, long-nosed man, told me that I should have my pride and come down here myself. Here I am. What are you gonna do, huh? What are you gonna do, long-nosed man? It'd be really funny in Emu's childish but regal wording and language. He basically posts up to Usopp and is just like, what you gonna do? I'm here now. You told me to be here myself. I'm here now. What of it, man? basically, you know, put his chest up to Usopp and just go, what are you gonna do, bro? It'll be a small moment of that between Emu and Usopp. Not unlike in Dressrosa when Doflamingo put the highest bounty on Usopp's head. Because Usopp was the one that really messed up his entire operation by taking out Sugar. That would be a really hilarious moment for Emu to do, to post up to Usopp and just be like, I'm here, bro, and I just took out your captain. What are you talking to me about not having pride in myself in my own hands? What are you gonna do, huh, buddy? Which I would think, in the chapter following this next one, that it gets Usopp to do something. It gets Usopp to maybe team up with Ragnar temporarily, and then, you know, Usopp gets a moment protecting the crew, protecting and being a brave warrior to sea. But that would be the moment before, the Emu Usopp moment that I'm talking about right now, would be the moment before Emu has a genuine talk, genuine interaction with each other, with genuine interaction with Brook specifically in regards to Gunko. He's likely to just wipe everyone out, by the way. Like, after he has this conversation, his curiosity has been fulfilled. He then would just aim to wipe everybody out. Although by that time, I think Luffy will be back up and running. But before that, we deal with Emu throws away Luffy. Luffy is down for the count. He's not getting back up for this segment, for this part of the story. He's not getting back up. Everybody collectively has an oh shit moment. Everyone on the island, but especially those that are in the vicinity to directly watch Luffy get impaled by this sword. By this life-draining sword. Everybody collectively has an oh shit moment, and Straw Hats, but right afterwards, Straw Hats get active. Chopper and Frankie rush over to save Luffy. They go to pick him up. Emu will try one time to finish off Luffy, and then to intercept Chopper and Frankie as they come over. Jinbei, Zeus, Nami, even Usopp with a pop green, because he'll be spurred to do something, because that's his fucking captain. That's his captain. That's Luffy. He needs to do something. He can't be a coward right now. Although I wouldn't be surprised if Usopp was too scared to do anything. But Zeus definitely will come out and try to do something. Nami will be spurred. Usopp maybe will be spurred. It's a toss-up with Usopp. Jinbei will launch an airback brick fit. Jinbei will launch some ranged attack. I don't know if he even has ranged attacks. Besides like shockwave moves or something. I don't know. And the last of that quartet would be Brook trying to do something whose attention is divided, will ultimately go for his captain, because Brook, Shuri's at least in ice. Brook will also go and intercept Emu, and in that time frame, Emu will then direct his attention to Brook. And he will have a genuine conversation, a genuine interaction with him as the Afro-Man that he recognized from that throne room in Asperia 77 years ago. 77? No, that would be Shuri's age as of this time, but 70 years ago. To satisfy his curiosity of, you know, the Afro-Man that calls Gunko Princess Shuri. It may be that in this time, Emu takes a moment to step up to Usopp and tell him off for essentially baiting him to come to Elbaf in the first place. But I think that's more of an agenda / meme sort of prediction. I'm not really expecting that to happen, but I'm putting that in there for the sake of it's funny. But the three main things is Luffy is down. Straw Hats collectively oh shit themselves because they're seeing this in real time. They get into action. It'll be Chopper and Frankie to go over to us to recover Luffy. And then you have Brook, Jinbei, Nami, and Usopp do their damnedest to try to intercept Emu before he either finishes off Luffy or intercepts Chopper and Frankie from helping Luffy out. After which, Emu turns his attention to the other Straw Hats that aren't Chopper and Frankie. Steps up to Usopp, but his eyes focus on Brook, who, right after seeing Chopper and Frankie handle Luffy, turns his attention back to trying to unfree Shuri. Emu will look at them, get curious about Brook, and head over to them. First, to taunt Usopp, and then after having a moment of taunting Usopp for telling him to utilize his own pride and get his own hands dirty, as a callback to when Usopp told him to do just that. He then goes to Brook and has a genuine interaction with Brook to satisfy Emu's own curiosity. That's a lot to happen. That is a lot of individual steps to happen in a single chapter, but I think there would be enough panel space and pages for something like for those sequence of events happening as the main beats of that chapter. Other predictions is that there's going to be a brief cutaway, one, maybe 2 panels of the reactions to Zoro and Sanji while they are fighting Summers and killing him, of just feeling their captain's aura go away, feeling his life force, his energy go away suddenly, be distracted, and having to fend off now emboldened God's Knights. Acknowledging that their captain may be down and that they themselves must step up in order to help him out. They're making that declaration for themselves. We're not going to see anything of these 2 cutaways for now, but it's really just they react also to Luffy going down, but since they're not there to directly see it happen, they just feel it. They just make a declaration to themselves to step up so that they can avenge Luffy or hold out until Luffy recovers. And make sure that they will declare that they will take down the enemies before them. Those are some other predictions, but the main prediction is that, Luffy's down, Luffy will be down, Chopper and Frankie go to help him out, Jinbei, Nami, and Usopp. Maybe not Brook because he's dealing with Princess Shuri, but he will be shocked to see Luffy down as well. But definitely, Jinbei, Nami, and Usopp will do their very best to intercept Emu, as Emu tries to, 1, take out Luffy, then take out Chopper and Frankie, or at least attempt to, be thwarted, and then turn his attention to those 3 and Brook, and in particular Brook himself, and head over to them. He taunts Usopp as a funny callback. He taunts Usopp, and then he will focus his entire attention and curiosity on Brook to understand the relationship between Princess Shuri and Brook, Gonko and Brook, and stuff like that. They will then have a genuine interaction that will either end the chapter, going into the next chapter where we go fully into what that interaction entails, or we do get a genuine interaction between the 2. for whatever it is. And I think with that, I will end this discussion stream. There was nobody here to really present any questions or any thoughts that they may have had. So it was really just an hour and a half of me rambling on. But I do appreciate any and all people that came through, that have come in. They see what's going on. Please do all of the things, and I hope you at least enjoyed hearing me ramble on, hearing me talk about the chapter and other things regarding One Piece. It's always fun. It's always fun to do that, as well as, you know, it's fun to discuss things that I enjoy while I am dying of heat and sweating like a pig. I'm gonna see if I can have some food to eat before I get ready for bed to get ready for work tomorrow. For anybody that's here to see the VOD, I appreciate you. Please come in, leave comments, subscribe and stuff. There will be more streams. I don't have a consistent schedule. But I appreciate any and all people coming through, and I will see you guys in the next one. So, you have a great rest of the day, night, evening, what have you. I'll see you all guys on Friday when the chapter comes out and we have a reaction. That will be consistent. Whenever there's a new chapter out, we'll have a reaction. We'll have a reaction stream that. Anyway, thank you very much. You have a great one, you guys. Bye-bye.